Hello! Welcome to LRRTech, which, for those of you who don't know, because I saw some questions about it, this is something that I've done, I think, twice, maybe 3 times before. It's not like a recurring show, but this is the show where I talk to you about some of the stuff behind the scenes of Loading Ready Run from a technical point of view, in the streaming, and also theoretically it could encompass other aspects of our production, although up to this point it has not. So previously on LRRTech I've talked about like the card recognizer system we use, and some of the overlay stuff that we use for the more advanced streaming we do, in terms of like the AFK stuff and like the pre-release and that kind of stuff. But today I wanted to talk about the our tech setup for our kind of everyday streaming. I've seen, there's been I've seen people asking about this a little bit, and there's a thread on the forums about it that is woefully out of date. Not just because we have new technology now, but we're actually in like a physically that was written when we were in our old location, in the old moon base, and even if we had all the same tech right now, when we moved to the new moon base, things would have changed around a little bit anyway. So, the new setup is quite different from the way it's depicted on that forum post, which has now been updated to some extent. Although I should probably put a thing in the top saying that the new stuff is down lower. Anyway, and frankly, like I've been kind of putting off doing this stream because the tech setup we have here has a certain amount of flux to it at all times. In the sense that I'm always like thinking about, it's like, oh man, we could do it this way, and now it make things easier. And so I'm always like messing around with stuff, or there'll be like a new box, or a new camera, or a new converter, or a new way of doing things, or someone goes, I want to stream, a old Mac game, and I don't want to use an emulator for whatever reason. How can I integrate that into the system? There's all sorts of different stuff. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how we currently set up the tech, how our current tech setup is, and I also want to talk about a little bit about what we previously had for our tech setup and why we changed. And hopefully there's some info here that you can hopefully there's some info here that you could apply to your own thing, whether streaming or video recording or whatever you are doing, because frankly we have spent a lot of time and a lot of work on this, and so hopefully some of this info is useful to you. So we're going to start with, now there's a I guess, I don't know what the technical term for it is, like a circuit diagram or a network diagram that I did up yesterday of what the current layout of the thing is. And I tweeted it out this morning. And so let me just throw that up right now. Whoop. So you can see this is a kind of obviously idealized example of what we are currently looking at in terms of that should be more like that. Yes. Okay. This is what we're currently, and sort of idealized look of what we're currently looking at in terms of how the stream is set up. So I guess the first thing to do, maybe I'll just quickly take you through this setup and why we have certain things the way they are. So obviously over here, wait a minute, I've got a... Well, you see this section over here, he's going to go around the back, and then they're going to come in 4, and the tackle is going to happen right there. Wait, okay. So this section, wait, I can do this better. Okay. This section here, these are the consoles. Obviously, they're not all PS4s. I didn't want to get like a different little icon for every different console we have, and what consoles we have do change to some extent. Sometimes we get new consoles in. I think the most recent console we have added to our library of consoles that we could theoretically stream from is Heather got a Vita PS, or the Vita TV, I think it's called, the like PS Vita thing that can plug into TVs. So we've got all these consoles, and part of the idea from the very beginning on with streaming, and a large portion of why we have sort of additional complexity in our streaming setup is we want to be able to stream. We've always wanted to be able to stream lots of different things. So many streamers on Twitch or whatever will only stream PC games, or only stream PlayStation games or whatever. But we've always been trying to be very sort of agnostic about our platform choices, so we have as much flexibility as possible for the streamers. So that means that we've got to have these switches here, or we don't have to, but it makes things a lot easier if we have a switch. So that means that you don't have to go around back and plug and unplug the cables from the back of the computer every time you want to switch to a different device. You just hit the button on the front of the switch or power it up or down. Now, as you can see, we have 2 switches. Now, that's not... there's a couple reasons for that. Obviously, that's not the ideal circumstance. The ideal circumstance would be to have one giant switch that is all the stuff. But what's up, James? Oh. The ideal circumstance would be one giant switch that has one input and a whole ton of outputs on it. My data might be a little old on the on the graphics card. I think that was that's the old graphics card that we moved over to this one now.
Yeah.
I was incorrect on that. I will update that. Anyway, when I was listening, the graphics card for that one. So that graphics card has moved over to this.
Yeah.
That graphics card over to here.
See, now we need to hook up my sweet new iPad Pro so you can do this with the the thing.
Theoretically possible.
Yeah, I know.
Theoretically possible.
The graphics card in that, I believe, is now a 970.
That would be a good graphics card to have there.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we've got this. We started out with this one switch, and it turns out that I've been wanting to get I've been wanting to get a 8-port or 10-port switch, one HDMI in and then a whole ton out. And sadly, that does not seem to be a very common thing. Unless you start getting into the super high-end stuff where it's just a box that you add a bunch of cards to, and it's $1,000 for the box before you add the cards to it. Just a big switch that has a lot of HDMI ports on it is surprisingly not that common. I guess because weirdly most people don't have 10 devices that they want to hook up to one TV. So what we've got is this one switch which is a 4x1, pretty standard 4x1 HDMI switch. And then we have a secondary switch, which is another 4x1 switch. But the important part about that switch is that it also has audio output on it. So it's got the HDMI signal that it passes through, but then it also separates out the audio from the HDMI into an analog cable, which we send separately over to the mixing board, so that we can have the audio being mixed, and the person can hear the audio without it having to first go through the computer, which results in additional complexity and also latency. So that's what we want to do. And then so the video comes in from the consoles, goes to either one of the switches, depending on which one it is. And then it goes into the splitter. And the reason why it goes into the splitter is primarily two reasons. One, it makes it so that we can split the signal and plug it into this monitor, as you can see, which makes it so that the person playing the game can get a real-time, a perfect, or not a real-time copy of what the stream is seeing without it having to go through the computer. So again, that doesn't makes it so that they can actually play it as it's meant to be played, not with whatever amount of latency there is in the normal capturing setup, which isn't a lot. For when Kathleen is doing an RPG or something, she usually actually just plays straight on the preview. But if you're, say, playing a first-person shooter or playing, a platforming game or something where timing is really important, then it can make a big difference. I remember back in the days of when everyone was playing Bloodborne, and that was before we had this set up, and so Cam was playing Bloodborne on the the preview, and he didn't realize that there was the little bit of latency, he was getting quite good at the game, and then I fixed it, and I was like, so we you don't have latency, but the problem was, but all his reflexes were configured, were set up for the lag that was already built there. So he had a whole bunch of adjustment to do. So it was very funny. Anyway, so the other part of that, so the other reason we have the switch, so first reason we have the switch is that we can watch the stuff as well as have it being captured by the computer. So it goes there and it goes there. The second thing, and this is really dumb, but this is quite an old switch. This is a switch. We got it. I think originally for Desert Bus, Desert Bus 5 or 6, one of the first ones that was at the streaming, was at the Moonbase instead of, or was at the Moonbase 3. And one of the things about having an old switch like that is that it does not support or does not pass through HDCP. And so what that means is that we can capture HDCP encoded signals. And why that's important is because a lot of consoles, most importantly the PS3, the Vita TV, and the PS4, and the PS4 in certain circumstances, all have their content HDCP encoded, which means that you will not be able to capture it on your capture card. And it's really, really annoying because you can't, there's various ways to get past HDCP protection, but it's one of those things that you don't really notice until you actually try to capture it. Yeah, the PS4 the HDCP can be turned off, but that it occasionally turns itself on automatically for certain circumstances, like if you try to watch a Blu-ray or if you try to like even watching like a YouTube video. And so if you are running on like a PS3, the only other way to get PS3 video, if you don't have something like this, like an old HDMI splitter or it's basically you want like old HDMI pass-through devices, and finding one that works can be a little bit tricky, which is why I'm really happy that we have one. But if you don't have that, the only other alternative is you have to do all your stuff through component cables instead of HDMI jacks. So super annoying. So yeah, we've got that. So that splitter strips all HDCP, so you don't have to worry about that. And then it goes into our Stream PC, which is currently actually not as overloaded as it once was. We used to have 2 different capture cards in it, one for the PC and one for the consoles. But now actually everything goes through one capture card, which is the Magewell PC 100XE. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But so that's sort of how the video comes in, or the video from the consoles come in. And then over here we've got our mixing board, which is how all the audio comes through, and that's so that we can adjust the levels. So if people go, oh, the game is too quiet, we can turn it up, or they say your voice is too loud, we can turn that down. We can adjust stuff on the fly without having to like go into the actual computer or even worse, like hope that the video game has like volume controls in it, which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So the mixing board also takes in the microphones, which our primary microphone is the one that I'm blocking with my body here. The thing, wait. Ha! Yes. It is a Rode NTG2 microphone, which is just sort of their standard, not standard, but it's just sort of their most common kind of boom microphone. It's in fact the same microphone that we use for our actual boom for filming stuff. And so it has occasionally been stolen from here and used like for loading time or for other stuff if we have to. And then we also have other channels on the mixing board, so we can, we can put in one of these mics, which is the SM58 microphone. And these microphones are really good for. This microphone is really good for being. It's a very close microphone, so it picks up the audio. In fact, I can actually plug it in here. So the nice thing about the boom microphone is that you don't have to be really close to it. Like it's directional, but the distance doesn't really matter as much. So you don't have to be super close to it to do it. So you can move around a little bit, and it's not going to totally change how you sound. You can have 2 people, you can have 3 people here, and they're all going to sound pretty good. The disadvantage to it is that it picks up a little bit more room noise than you otherwise would. So like the air conditioning or just the computers going. Or in the old office, when we had like construction going on basically all the time, that was a big problem. And so something that you might remember from the old office is that we actually used this microphone sometimes when the construction sound was really too loud. And so the nice thing about this microphone is that it doesn't pick up a lot of background noise, but the disadvantage is that you have to be quite close onto it in order for it to pick up the voice well. The other nice thing about this microphone is that it's got kind of a nicer sound to it.
Like
here.
I'm just off screen talking.
Okay.
You guys can probably hear me fairly well. Maybe not obviously as well as Paul, because I am just off camera there.
Yeah, and the microphone isn't pointed at you.
It isn't really necessarily pointed at me, but again, you are hearing me, you're understanding me. You can make out what I'm saying. When Paul switches over to the SM58, you probably won't as well.
So this is the SM58, and as you probably have noticed, there is no longer any background noise. Let's see. Hopefully this is actually loud enough. Yeah, this is pretty loud. There's no longer any background noise, and you can just hear my beautiful, mellifluous voice.
And if I'm talking over here, my guess is you guys are probably not hearing me anywhere near as well. Probably you can still make out what I say, but it doesn't really work as well. And I'm talking at exactly the same volume as I was before he muted the boom mic. So I'm curious to see what you guys say about that.
So could you hear James was just talking there? Yeah, James is very, very far away now. Yeah. And so it's really cool. And yeah, this is also the mic that you want to be using if, all your ASMR videos or whatever. Be like, okay, everybody, let's just relax. And let's, I don't know, ASMR stuff. Crumple paper, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, and this has we've got this pop shield here to make sure that it doesn't go, because, listen to this. This is me talking with the pop shield. This is me talking without the pop shield. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Polly the poker picker from Penn State Penitentiary. Polly the poker picker from Penn State Penitentiary. The SM58, for those of you who don't know microphone stuff, is basically an industry standard microphone. It is used in basically, when people have handheld microphones, it's almost always an SM58. Not always, but it is a very common microphone. Sometimes there'll be like a filter on top of it or something, but so this is a good microphone. But the issue, of course, with this, and you probably noticed this. Well, for one thing, you have this weird like thing right kind of in your face, which is not ideal for a lot of streaming stuff. And the other thing is, which you probably know if you are a long-time podcast listener, for if you're someone like, say, Cam, who continually forgot to kind of get really close to the mic like this, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just playing the game over here. How's it going, everybody? Doop-a-doop-a-doo. I'm playing my video game. And then, like the difference between me talking here and me talking here is huge, as opposed to with the boom mic. It's not a big deal. So the other microphones that we have are the ones that we currently now use for is the microphones that we now use for our podcasts and for various other things, which is the SM93 lapel mic, which you can see here. This is not the microphone. This is just the power pack, or this is the connector for the microphone. The actual microphone is that little guy right there, and this is a lapel mic, which means that you just attach it to your shirt, and it is sort of halfway in between the boom mic and the SM58 in terms of how, like, it does definitely get more room noise than something like this, but it is directional, and it gives you that really kind of present sound as if somebody is sort of talking right beside you. Yeah, I'm going to switch over because I don't want to talk into this microphone anymore. Hey! So now we're talking into normal. I'm back to the boom microphone now. So yeah, the SM58, great if you happen, like, if you're a podcaster or something, and you're mostly concerned with audio as opposed to video, especially, I highly recommend the SM58. They're
you will need a mixing board.
You need a mixing board for them because it's an XLR microphone.
Yeah.
But if you want to have like 2 or 3 people sitting around doing a podcast, sort of the first step is to just get like a microphone and have people sit in a circle and do it. But one of the best upgrades that you can get would be get a couple of SM58s, get a mixing board, put that stuff together. The SM93s are a more complicated deal. You've got, because there's the actual microphone, and then there's there's the microphone, and then there's actually like the pack, and like the SM93 is actually the same microphone. It can be a wireless microphone. You just have to swap out a different pack there. So those were kind of those were kind of a big purchase for us when we moved to the new place. You might have seen we also had the sort of over-the-ear microphones. I forget what they're called. They were also Shure microphones, and we still have those. But those have, over our experimentation, those have proven to be less good than we were hoping. I mean, the sound you get from them is quite good, but they're just really finicky in terms of not making kind of rustling noises and stuff. Headset, yes, not headphone microphones. Okay, so that's the basic streaming setup, or that's the audio setup. So we've got the microphone plus the two other microphones that we can have if we want. We've got the audio, which is again coming in from that the HDMI splitter into one of the audio track. So that contains the audio for all the consoles and also the gaming PC. And then we also, the other audio that comes into the board is the audio from the Stream PC, which comes through here. And that's, so the audio from the Stream PC is going to be stuff like the notifier noise, like the from the notifier, the music from the the new intro sequences, music that your people are playing like during the intro, the big giant circles music or whatever, like James likes to play. All that kind of stuff that comes in from the Stream PC. And again, we put it through, while that obviously the Stream PC is the PC that's actually sending the stream, so it could be just playing it directly onto the stream. We send it through the board and then back out so that we have the ability to control the levels really really easily. Now you probably note that there's this USB audio interface right here, and the orange being USB cables. We've got USB coming from the board into the computer, and this audio coming out from. Wait, actually, whoops, this is wrong. Sorry, this should be USB here. This should be regular audio here. Sorry about that. I will fix that. The reason for that is, again, those of you who may be long-time watchers of the streams probably remember the like buzzing that we had that kind of came and went, and sometimes was bad, sometimes was bad, sometimes wasn't quite so bad, sometimes was just like a really high-pitched thing, sometimes was not noticeable. It was more noticeable for some people, less noticeable for some other people. The bees in the stream. And the reason for that is we were using the internal, so, all computers have, or all Windows computers anyway, have, built-in sound cards in them. So you've got audio coming in the in and the out, in inputs and outputs. And sadly, the built-in audio system, built-in audio converter, I guess, on the Stream on the motherboard of the Stream PC sucks. And from what I have read, while I was trying to figure out what the problem was, this is actually pretty common. Is that the problem is you've got all sorts of, obviously there's a lot of electricity and electric fields moving around inside a computer. and a computer is quite well shielded outside. The case does a good job of shielding the computer, and various components are shielded. But inside is just a mess in terms of electromagnetic interference. And so there's a couple of different options for how you can do that. And the easiest for us seemed to be making everything go through USB and limiting the amount of limiting our use of those actual inputs and outputs. So the Stream PC audio comes out over USB. So, sorry, this is incorrect. That should be orange. And it then goes through this little USB interface, and then comes out of there as RCA, which then goes to the board, and then the board does all the stuff it wants to do and sends its audio back into the Stream PC, sends the full mix back into the Stream PC. Yes, PCI audio cards would be another solution. Funny story, I had a PCI. I was like, okay, we need to get something to fix here. PCI audio. Let's get a PCI audio card. That'll fix that. I got one, and it turns out every single PCI slot in the Stream computer is currently occupied. So we weren't able to use that. Actually, no. There was one PCI slot that was not occupied, but the double-wide graphics card was covering it. Why did they even bother putting a PCI card? Like, has anybody made a non-double-wide graphics card in the last, 5 years?
Other than the incredibly cheap ones, no.
Like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just be using onboard graphics.
Probably.
At that point. Anyway. The UCA 222 is perfect as long as it either records or plays. Right, yeah. So the that's our basic audio setup. The big thing that I would love to get fixed about our audio setup, which they don't, which is for some reason, again, it's one of these things where it's like, it shouldn't be that hard, but apparently it's not something that anybody wants, is a mixing board that outputs, I will move this so it doesn't block the name of the mixing board. Yeah, let me just try and hook it. A mixing board that can actually output separate channels to the computer over, USB 3 or something. Because right now, basically any mixing board that you can get that has a USB output on it, what it's outputting is what's called the master signal, as in the master, as in the mixed signal. It would be amazing if I could bring in, the microphones and the stream and the game separately into the computer and control that. The main mix. Sorry, not the master mix. The only mixers that I've been able to find that can do that, there are FireWire ones, which is great for people who still have FireWire is really hard to get. Again, we would need another PCI card slot.
It's also just a dying technology.
And it's super, it's basically, at this point, it is only used in high-end audio production, I think. That's why, USB doesn't have the bandwidth for that. USB 3 definitely could, though. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. The only systems that I've seen that could possibly do it, they don't come into the computer as the right devices. Which is kind of sad. Like they come in, like it comes in as just a mixed device, and the only way to actually get it to, because they're set up for high-end audio systems. If you're using a a digital audio, a DAW. It's called Digital Audio Workplace. I don't know if you're using something like Audacity or an actual expensive one. I don't know what they're all these days. Then there's special drivers that you can get that make it work. But the ASIO drivers, they're called, which are digital audio workstation. They're great, and the ASIO drivers are specially designed so that they're super low latency and all this kind of stuff. Soundcraft. 12.
I just looked that up, and one of the things that says, if you scroll down in overview, where is it? The console is designed to deliver pristine recording. Both have the ultra-low latency USB interface that flawlessly captures every channel, which can then be mixed or transferred to a DAW further down for further mix down in production.
That might be interesting.
So maybe something to look at.
Because the problem is that XSplit, and I'm pretty sure OBS as well, does not support the ASIO high-end type drivers. So sadly, you can't get it to work that way. So you need something that actually presents itself Windows, as like a Windows device that has, or like presents itself as like 10 different Windows devices or something weird like that. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, so that's the audio setup we've got. And then of course the audio goes out from the board to a headphone splitter that we have that splits it into 4 headphone jacks. This is our second headphone splitter. The first one we had was a monoprice one that had a fairly large amount of jank. That, to be fair to monoprice, it did get pulled off the table like a lot.
Numerous times, yeah.
So, it's not entirely just because it was a poorly made thing. But this new one, the Rolls makes sort of higher end stuff, and it's fancy. The 12 MTK does that. Oh, wow. All right.
Definitely have to check that out.
If you are a authorized representative for 12 MTK, you have done your job, sir.
And if you're not, you should be.
Yeah.
And then we use all manner of headphones.
Yeah.
The ones specifically Paul wearing right now are the Sony MDR 7506, which, like the Shure SM58, is sort of the industry standard when it comes to studio monitoring headphones.
Turns out this is flipped.
They're relatively cheap. They're like $100. You can absolutely get better studio quality headphones, but these are kind of, again, the sort of industry standard. And then we also have, I think, B&H in-house version of them.
This is B&H, the Senal.
Yeah.
Is basically, because they're the most popular headphones and B&H is the largest seller of AV equipment in the world, B&H was like, so this is the popular headset.
Yeah.
We have an in-house brand. Why don't we just make that?
Yeah.
And so they did. So if you want, I highly recommend these headphones. Actually, the B&H, the SMH 1000 Senal headphones. Not only are they, from an auditory standpoint, they're designed to basically mimic these guys exactly. But even better, they have a removable cable.
Yeah.
Which these ones don't.
No.
Which is super nice. So if your cable breaks or whatever, they
should actually
replace it.
Order more of those because those are actually the headphones that Paul is wearing are actually my personal headphones that I bought and kind of just left here. But I need to take them home because my headphones at home are crapping out on me.
James, you left them here for like 2 months. I'm pretty sure that means that we now own them.
No.
That's how it works.
I need to take them home. I need headphones at home. But they're great. They're comfortable. When you're streaming, you definitely want headphones that don't hurt your head after half an hour. We also have the headphones you've probably seen in a while. They're like they have like different color cups, and those are quite good as well.
the main downside to them is for some reason they have a ludicrously short cable on them.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, because they're not studio headphones.
They
are personal.
Yeah.
They're
like short for personal headphones.
They are
even.
pretty short even for personal headphones.
But those are quite good. The big thing that is nice about that you want with headphones that you should be looking for is headphones that are pretty good at sound isolating. So you can as in you can make sure that you're actually hearing what is going out on the stream as opposed to just hearing what's in the room. So yeah, that's the audio setup. We've got this. So our camera, it may surprise you to know that our camera is in fact a webcam, and this is something that has changed since the past. Since believe the layout that's on the website still says that we use the AF100, the Panasonic AF100.
Yeah.
Which we have the Panasonic AF100. And basically what happened is during Desert Bus 2 years ago, I guess. During Desert Bus 2 years ago, we had to take the AF100s away because we were using them for streaming. Or because we were using them for Desert Bus. But we wanted to do like a little bit of streaming in like the week before Desert Bus with the equipment that we had. And so we're like, hey, let's just get a webcam and put it up there. And basically, everybody, like, in terms of like comments we got and stuff, people either didn't notice that there was a difference or said it looked better.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple reasons for that. One, so while the AF100 is like objectively a better camera than
theoretically 25 times better if you just go on price.
Because the AF100 is like a $2,500, $3,000 camera, or at least it was when it was new.
Yeah.
AF1 this C920 is about $120. But there are different use cases here, right? Like in the AF100, while the video quality in it is really great, it's designed for film sort of video stuff, and so it's got really like what's called the color gamut on it is really large. So like it takes in, it's got a really nice color on it, but what that means is that if you're not running it through some kind of post-production thing, it can look a little bit washed out, and that's just because that it's wanting to make sure that it's not blowing out any of the colors or anything like that. The other thing is that it's got to go through in order to actually be read by the computer. It's got to be going through either HDMI or SDI. And then, so you have to deal with whatever your quality your capture card has, and so which can vary depending on what kind of capture card you're using. The C920 is interesting because it is, like I said, about $120, although Canadian. So someone was saying there's a deal yesterday that was on for $50 because it was on Prime Day.
I bought one yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
For yourself?
Yeah, for $75 Canadian.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's not common that you have this situation where literally, like this is literally, I think there's a better, there's now the C930.
Yeah.
But the difference between the two cameras is the C930 I think has a slightly wider field of view.
Which could be useful for us.
But like this is literally the best webcam that you can get. Like there just isn't a better webcam. Nobody bothers to make webcams with like, 35 millimeter lenses and stuff. And so it turns out that it's actually really good. And I highly recommend it if you want to upgrade from, if you're using like the little webcam that's like built into your computer, or just something you had lying around. It is a great little webcam. As some people have said, apparently the audio, like getting the audio from it, is a little bit wonky. Obviously, that's not an issue for us because we don't use the audio from it. But yeah, it works very well, and it has various. One of the other things about it that's a little annoying is if you unplug it from the computer and plug it back in, it loses all its settings. So that's sometimes like, it'll especially happen with Checkpoint, just because it's at the beginning of the week, and so if something was changed over the weekend, Checkpoint will be the first show to show it. And Checkpoint will be like super blue, or people will look all sickly or something. So yeah, I recommend that one. Yeah, we used other webcams on our streams. This is the Microsoft Life Cam, which we have a couple of. That we use those primarily on the AFK streams in the other room, and they're only 720. But it's not that big a deal because usually you're cropping in, for instance, like right now, getting this is, I mean, the C920 is a 1080p webcam, but obviously we're not using 1080p worth of quality with me down here in the corner. So a 721 is just as good, provided that it has a good picture of a 720. All right. Let's see. Well, the last part about going into the computer, going into the streaming computer, is we have these here, which is we have two NICs in the computer. We got the built-in one, and we have a secondary one, which is taking up one of the PCI slots, which is why other stuff. In hindsight, we probably should have gotten a motherboard with two NICs on it because those are pretty common, and we could have saved ourselves some trouble. But that was a long time ago that we got this motherboard, and we didn't know what we would need at that point.
Is this one? No, it doesn't.
No, they're the same motherboard, I think. So the reason why we have that is because it's really important obviously for the stream here to go out in as high quality as possible. But there's tons of other stuff that happens in the office here. Especially like the uploading videos, uploading previous streams, the past streams to our YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. Obviously is going on all the time. And again, if you were watching our streams like a year ago, there'd be sometimes when like the stream would crap out and be like, Ian or Graham or James or somebody stupid uploading a podcast or uploading a video or whatever. So that's we set up the system where we've got the TELUS connection, which the TELUS connection is our main internet for the office here. And then we have Shaw, which is so the TELUS connection comes into our equipment room, goes into a big router or a big switch, and is sent all over the office. The Shaw connection literally is a direct connection to this computer. So there's a direct line from the Shaw modem to this computer. It doesn't have to go through a router. There's no chance of anything else interfering with it. And so the computer has both connections in it, so it does everything, all the streaming stuff over the Shaw connection, but it still has a network connection to the rest of the office so that people can access it through the streams, access it through its share and stuff. But what that means is that Ian can be uploading 50 gigabytes worth of stream replays, which happens very often. And we still have lots of speed in order to stream, and it won't interfere at all with our actual stream. There's a couple things like when James and I do the 18 games and counting, and sometimes we're waiting for something to download, and people have said like, hey, you guys should get a faster internet connection. We actually have the fastest TELUS internet connection you can get without going into fiber optics, and the fastest Shaw internet connection you can get without going into fiber optics. I think it says more about the internet service providers in Victoria, that the TELUS one is substantially faster than the Shaw one. The Shaw connection, while being nice and fast or being more than fast enough for doing the stream, it's about 5 megabit up, and we stream at 3.5 kb megabit. Whereas the TELUS connection is, I believe, 20 up, which is great because that means that we can upload YouTube videos really fast, which is super important. Whereas having all that extra upload bandwidth on our stream wouldn't actually help at all, because Twitch won't take a higher bandwidth than what we send. How do you command the stream to go through Shawport rather than TELUS one on the computer? That is a good question, actually, and that changed. Before, there's a thing in Windows called you can set I think it's called the affinity on your network, which on your computer, which just basically says like what when you've got two network connections, what priority to put them in, and because Windows being an intelligent system, really wanted to send all data over the TELUS connection, because it was like, well, this connection is clearly faster, so I'm going to send all my data over that connection. And so I had to hard code. It's like, no, everything goes out on the Shaw connection. Stop using the TELUS connection. I know it's better, but you can't use it. But that we no longer have to do that, because the new version of XSplit actually has a function built into it where you can set what network card to use for each. So in fact, I could be streaming to Twitch through the Shaw connection and be streaming to YouTube through the TELUS connection if I wanted to. I don't know why I would want to do that. Well, I guess that would actually make sense, because then, if you wanted enough bandwidth and stuff. So that's kind of a neat idea. So that's kind of a neat feature that XSplit added, not the most recent version, but a couple versions ago. Alrighty. Incidentally, like I said, there's a direct connection through the Shaw modem to this computer, which means in this computer, this is the game streaming computer, which means that the computer in the other office, sort of the AFK streaming computer or the podcasting computer, or that computer over there, actually does go through TELUS. So we have to be a little bit careful about that one. Theoretically, like I said, TELUS has 20 megabit up on it, and we only need like 3.5, 4 to do a good stream. So theoretically, it shouldn't be that big an issue, but sometimes it is. So we have to be a little bit careful about that. For the TELUS connection, actually, incidentally, we had to we pay for extra or for unlimited. It comes with, so the Shaw connection comes with 500 gigabytes a month. The TELUS connection comes with 500 gigabytes a month. We use most of the Shaw connection, and we were consistently going massively over the TELUS connection with uploading videos. I mean, if you just kind of do the math, it's like, oh yeah, that is a lot of bandwidth.
Yep.
And so we pay for unlimited upload, or unlimited upload cap on our TELUS connection. Okay, so that's so the obviously so that's the main stuff, and then that's how all the different things come into the mainstream computer, and then the obviously the most important part is this right here. So this is our relatively new capture card that we use, which is the Magewell PC100XE, which is kind of an interesting thing. This is a relatively new card, and let me see here. Okay, so if you're looking to get into streaming, there's sort of, I guess you would call it, there's like 4 tiers of graphics of video capture cards, I would say. This is sort of my own personal estimation. There used to be only 3, but now there's 4. So the lowest tier, which would be like the sort of sub $100 tier, are going to be like the sort of USB capture cards, or USB capture devices, usually they are. So you have stuff like Elgato makes one, the Opage makes one. The one we used to use it for capturing unskippable stuff. And the main reason why those are so cheap is because they aren't actually real-time capture. Usually what they'll do is you'll have the video come into that box. That box will compress it into H.264, and then it will send it out to you through USB to your computer. Because the USB 2.0 just doesn't have the bandwidth to do 1080p video at full resolution without compressing it first. And the problem with that is that that adds a big chunk of latency to your stream. We're talking sometimes like 5 or 6 seconds of latency, which doesn't sound like that much, but is actually like a huge deal. And so they're not really designed for sort of live streaming. They're more designed for like recording a video game. So if you like want to record a video game and then like do your commentary afterwards, that's fine. Something like that will work great. Hopag. Oh. I don't know. It's kind of a fun word to say. Hopag. So those devices, theoretically, you can use them for actual live streaming, but it's kind of wonky. You end up having to do like screen capture of your preview window or something stupid like that. So best to stay away from those. The lowest devices that I would consider actually like live streaming devices are they tend to be kind of from 100 to 250. Again, I'm thinking Canadian prices, so it's probably lower in American. And these will be like the AverMedia cards, the Blackmagic Intensity card, and those kind of ones where usually I'm talking about cards, so PCI cards for your computer, although most of them also come in a USB variety, and usually it'll be like USB 3. Or again, it'll be USB 2, but it'll only be able to do like 720 or something like that. And those cards actually work pretty well for most of the stuff you want to do. The main downside to them is that they are, up until recently, those cards can only do 30 frames a second. Which can be an issue if you're somebody who wants to stream really high frame rate stuff, and they can be a little finicky. The ones that I've tried personally, the AverMedia, let me think, the AverMedia Live Gamer something or other, Live Gamer Pro, I think it's called, is a really nice little card. For HDMI capture, but that's all it does. So it doesn't do component or composite or DVI or anything. Or well, I guess you could do DVI if you adapted it, but it doesn't do component or composite. So you can't do the legacy stuff, and which is kind of a shame. And the other thing with the AverMedia card is that it is really picky about HDCP. I talked about the HDCP thing a while ago with the PS3s and stuff like that. For some reason, for whatever reason, AverMedia has decided to make their card really picky about HDCP. So to the point where if that HDCP flag gets hit, like if you by mistake do a PS3 game, or if you are trying to play a Blu-ray or something, and for whatever reason, if HDCP content comes into the AverMedia card, and that flag gets tripped, the AverMedia card will refuse to capture anything, even non-HTTP content, until like the computer is restarted. You unplug all the cables and then plug them all back in. It was a huge pain in the ass that we encountered every once in a while. The other one, the Blackmagic Intensity, we actually have two cards of the Blackmagic Intensity. It's a good card in the sense that it's very flexible. So it can do HDMI, it can do component, it can do composite, that kind of stuff. But the downside is that it doesn't like changing. It doesn't like changing the input source at all. So again, if you watched early streams, especially stuff like when Beige would be streaming Wii stuff, and it would be like consistently like half an hour late, that was because we were sending stuff through the Blackmagic Intensity card, and because the Wii uses component cables and is at a different resolution than most part, you end up with you ended up like it was basically like the name Blackmagic was eerily necessary. Like you would turn it on and it wouldn't work. And so you'd shut it down and restart, and it wouldn't work. And then you turn off the Wii and turn it back on, and it wouldn't work. And then you shut it off and unplug the cable and plug it back in, and it would work. And the next time it would work, no problem. And the next time it would be unplug the computer or unplug the cable and plug it back in, and it would suddenly work. Like the solution to the problem was like you would just have to try like in order about 5 different things. And sometimes one of them would work and sometimes it wouldn't. And it'd be like, so what do we do now? Restart again? Right? And sometimes like the third restart made it work. It was a huge pain in the ass. So, up until about a couple years ago, you had those, the really low end boxes. You had the stuff like the AverMedia cards and the Blackmagic cards. And then you had the ridiculously high end stuff. So you had basically like above $1,000, which were called, which are tend to be called like frame grabbers or like frame capture cards. And those are usually they'll be like over $1,000. They'll often have like several inputs on them, and they're usually designed to be attached to another even more expensive thing. So those are sort of outside the general price range. But recently there's been a move, or there's been a couple of cards that have come out that have hit this area between the sort of Blackmagic kind of $200 and the over $1,000 to this sort of $350, $400 level. And so these are the cards that if you are getting really serious about streaming, there's something that you might want to invest in. And there's currently, as far as I know, there are currently 2. There's one that's made by a company called Miko Msoft, I believe it's called. I keep thinking it's Microsoft, but it's not. It's like Miko Msoft. And there's the one that we use, which is made by Magewell. And you be forgiven for not hearing about either those names. I believe they're both Korean companies. And these, I have not used the Miko Msoft one, although they are they're very well recommended. But the Magewell card that we use, this guy right here, I cannot recommend enough. Actually, they're really, really great. The Magewell, it was one of those things where I didn't really know that much about it. I looked at all the marketing material and it seemed really good, and I tried it out, and it's really great. It can take all your different inputs. It can take HDMI, composite, component, all that kind of stuff. But the big advantage of it over the like something like the Blackmagic is, for one thing, it can do 1080p 60, so it can do 60 frames a second. It can auto detect what your input is going to be. So the Blackmagic card, you had to tell it what the input was going to be, and so sometimes you had to kind of guess, because you would think that it would be easy that all inputs are going to be 1080p, but no. Sometimes games are 720. Sometimes the games are 720, but their menu is 1080p, just to be stupid. And so the Magewell, it can take basically any input. So it can take anything that you can plug into it. You got your HDMI's, your DVI, composite component, whatever. It automatically, internally on the card, it upsamples it to whatever you want. So in our case, 1080p. And then output, so it's always outputting the same, always giving the same value to, as an output. You can run multiple programs to capture it from the same time, which is kind of cool. The other part of it, which is really amazing, but has actually caused us problems, is that the Magewell card is one of the amazing things about it is it's extremely low latency. So again, I've mentioned latency a couple times. You're talking about the cameras, the cameras and audio and all this kind of stuff. Because the important thing, obviously, is to make sure that your video and your audio and your video game and your video from your camera and everything is coming in approximately synchronized, right? So that when I'm talking, my voice sounds like it's coming out of my mouth. And you can run into issues when the different devices are not capturing it, are capturing at different rates. And ironically, the problem with the Magewell that we've run into with the Magewell is that it's too good. It captures too fast. Most cards will, a lot of things will list their, will have like their latency in milliseconds. So, like for instance, the Blackmagic card and stuff is approximately like 200 milliseconds latency, so 0.2 of a second, maybe 0.3 of a second, and you can adjust for that in XSplit. The Magewell card, its latency, they measure it in lines. So it's something like, I'd have to look it up, but it's something like 30 lines, which, it's like lines across the screen. So if you think like 1080, there's a 1080 and by 30, like it's only off by 30 lines. That's how much latency it's adding to the system, which is very, very fast, which is great. It means that, for instance, the preview is a lot closer to real time and all that kind of stuff. But you run into a problem because unless everything else in your system is also that really great low latency, things start going out of sync. And so we've had a bit of problems with that, trying to get that coordinated, trying to make sure that the really reduced latency of the capture card doesn't make things ironically look worse. Anyway, so if you are in the market for something a little bit more high end than the standard stuff, 64 video lines, that's it. Then that's what you want to. Then I highly recommend the Magewell. Like I said, the Miko MSoft one comes highly recommended. I believe that's what they used on the AGDQ. That's what they used for their capture stuff. So obviously it's also very good. I think, Jesus, that was a lot of talking.
Questions?
I think that is all the stuff that I wanted to talk about with our setup. This diagram that you see here is on our Twitter account. Actually, wait a minute. Let me. I hooked up our little webcam here so I could actually show you stuff. And I never used it. So this is what it looks like, in the ideal diagram. Whoop. This is what it looks like for real. So here's that mixing board with the splitter there. And we've got, Here are the two, so there's the splitter, the HDMI splitter there. There's the two HDMI switches right there, one on top of each other with many HDMI cables coming out of them. Here is the camera that's looking at me, which is attached to the shelf here, as you can see. Here is our 360 with the greatest faceplate ever.
The worst faceplate ever.
That nobody agrees with. That's the greatest faceplate ever, but I say it is, and therefore it stays. We've got all our various devices here, our different consoles, and then there's under the table, which is basically black, but
that's not bad. Just more rat's nest.
It's not a rat's nest.
It's pretty bad.
And there are the various cables coming out. I mean, it's one of these, and there's the router that's sending the TELUS connection around. And yeah. So that's basically, now, I mean, it's not like, yeah, there's cables that are, it's not as like, they're not all like tied down and everything. But we move stuff around all the time. If we kept tying everything down, then it would just be a bigger pain in the butt. So I see some people asking about the AFK stuff. That is basically a whole other video.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into AFK stuff right now. For one thing, I'm not in the AFK room. Because the AFK setup, tech-wise, is like a whole other thing. And I guess I will do that at some point. What consoles are currently connected? Most of them. They just aren't on. So yeah. And yeah, I will look into that. Obviously, if people have suggestions for stuff, this is something that has, grown up organically over the sort of year and a half or so that we've been streaming really seriously.
Longer than that now.
2 years, I guess. That we've been streaming really seriously. And so as new problems develop or new solutions present themselves. But suggestions are always welcome. And that mixing board in particular we might take a look at, because this mixing board is like fine, but we got it when we first started doing a lot of mixing, when we first started doing a lot of streaming, and it was just like we went down to B&H not B&H, we went down to the Long and McQuaid, which is the local sort of audio equipment place, and just got sort of one that had the right number of inputs and outputs on it. It wasn't a lot of research involved.
No, it wasn't super expensive. It was, yeah.
Solid brick of caramel.
Yeah,
so
Dreamcast, how do you do composite? I think some people are wondering.
Composite goes in through the Magewell card. So there's the Magewell thing has kind of this sort of, I think you can kind of see it on the under the table. Wait, let me switch to the webcam. You see that there? It's this kind of affectionately referred to as a squid that has a bunch of cables on it, inputs and outputs, and so you can plug into that, and then that plugs into the card, and that's basically just because in order to get the number of inputs and outputs you need, there's no technically it's called a breakout cable, but I like calling it a squid. Yes, the Magewell Pro Capture HDMI, I believe, is the name they call it. It's important though. There are two. There's the PC100XE, which is the one we have. There is also the XL100XE, which is the old version of what we have, and it looks exactly the same, but isn't as good. And it's been discontinued now. But a lot of companies are still selling the old one. And if you watched the test streams from a couple months back, I got the old one by mistake without realizing it, and I had to switch it back to the new one. And it's like the same price as the new one. The old one is like the same price as the new one, but not as good. So you definitely want to make sure that you get the new version of it. Yeah, I don't think streaming me reorganizing the cables for the stream would work very well. That would unplug important things.
I mean, we could stream it off a different computer.
Why do you use monitor 3 for PC games? Why is HDMI splitter plugged into monitor 2 and not 3? We have, so I mean, theoretically, I guess we could only have 2 monitors, and use use one monitor for the PC or whatever consoles are running, and then the other monitor for the stream computer. But it's nice to have the 2 monitors hooked up to the stream computer, so it can be a dual monitor setup when we want it to, and then we can switch one of the monitors into doing the preview of the console stuff.
Yeah, because the way we have the monitors set up is, this is where the chat and XSplit lives, right in front of you, and then to the right we have.
So this is one monitor.
Yeah, so you can have stuff like our dashboard and just a browser up with
with the chat and
with
stuff.
the chat or with Twitter or
and
with
then
whatever.
This is the middle, which is the preview right now in chat, and then this is
the gaming monitor.
The gaming monitor,
or the gaming PC specifically.
Doop doop. Originally, we would have things where like all the stuff would be on this middle monitor, PC gaming would be on that monitor, console gaming would be on this monitor. And then we realized that was a stupid idea, and we could just have console gaming on the middle monitor. Yep. And so people looked like they were actually looking into the camera a bit more. Yes, the water bottle is mine. That's not part of the streaming setup, although it is important. Let me think what. The one other cool thing that we have is we have this special 3DS, which, as you notice, has this port on the back, which if you look at your own 3DS, you will not have, unless you've got one of these as well. This is a specially modded 3DS from a company, I believe, called, it's like 3DS Capture or something. And it has a USB cable that plugs into. It has a special USB port that plugs into it and plugs into the computer, and that allows us to. Stream the 3DS stuff without having to do something weird. And so I can go 3DS. Ta-da! Which is pretty cool. Now, theoretically, the company that makes that also makes a sort of similar thing. That does a similar thing for the WePad, but it is quite expensive, and it's like for the amount of times that we are playing Wii games that you need to view the Wii pad on, it's probably not worth it. If somehow we find ourselves playing a lot more Wii U games, I guess we could do that. So yes. Any other questions? If you've got, obviously, if you don't have questions now, if you want to, there's a thread in the forums about streaming setup, or drop me an email, and I would be happy to probably answer them. I will be happy to answer them, and I will enjoy getting them, and I hope I will answer them. But sometimes I forget about emails. But what is the number one upgrade on your shopping list? If that board is real, or if that board that somebody was talking about will work for our thing, that could totally be good. How similar are the two streaming computers? They are different. At the moment anyway, the AFK computer is not as powerful as this streaming computer, I don't think. Which is mostly it's actually no. Now the AFK computer is actually pretty similar to this computer. AFK computer has more capture cards in it for various reasons, and it doesn't have like the dual NICs in it, but they're pretty similar. Actually, one other thing to talk about quickly is with the Stream PC. As I mentioned, or as I talked about, this graphics card is actually in the Stream PC now, not in the gaming PC. So one cool trick with XSplit, and I'm pretty sure that OBS does this as well. If you've got a computer with an Intel processor, I think there is probably an equivalent for AMD as well. But you can turn on, even if you're using so by default, when your modern processors will usually have a graphics system built into them. Intel calls theirs Iris. I don't know what the AMD equivalent is, but modern computers will have you'll be able to like run a monitor and play games and stuff. And Intel's built-in graphics system is actually like not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's not that bad. But one of the cool things is that as part of that, somebody mentioned in the chat there, Intel has something built into their chips and into their processors called QuickSync, which is a hardware H.264 encoder. So most processors can H.264 decode, so you can watch movies and stuff on your computer. But Intel has this hardware encoder, so you can it can encode movies using the special subset of the processor. What's interesting about that is that normally when you put in an external graphics card, so if you put in you put in your GeForce or your AMD graphics card, or your NVIDIA, by default, usually that internal graphics subsystem on the processor will turn itself off because it's like, you don't need me anymore. You've got this graphics card that is way better than I could ever do, so I'm just going to stop. But what you can do, and if you look up like enable QuickSync or something, you can find out about this in more detail. But essentially what you can do is you can go into your computer's BIOS and tell it to enable the graphics subsystem of your processor, even though it has a separate graphics card. So the default is usually the default is to disable the graphics subsystem when the graphics card is there. But you can tell it to keep it on, and it'll be like, okay, I'll keep it, but you probably don't want to use it. But that's fine because when that system is enabled, that means that you can use this quick sync thing. And what that means is that it allows you to, for instance, this video that I'm sending to you right now, 1080p, 30 frames a second, is a pretty good, that requires a lot of processor power to encode, right? It's encode. Not only is it encoding 1080p video 30 frames a second, but it's doing it at faster than real time. So that requires a pretty good chunk of processor power, which can cause problems on a computer, especially if you're trying to like play a video game on the computer at the same time. So what the QuickSync thing makes that encoding process, it makes this graphics subsystem of the processor, which is not being used anyway, because you're using the internal graphics or the external graphics card or the secondary graphics card to actually do your gaming and stuff. So this thing would normally just be not doing anything. You can use it to encode your video for streaming, and that's great because you basically get like free processor power for this one specific task. But if you're a streamer, that's a very important task. So I highly recommend trying it out. What I mean by faster than real time is that it has to encode a second of video in less than a second. If it was encoding a second of video and it took the entire second to encode that second of video, it would, because there's other things that have to go on, right? It has to resize it and send it to different subsystems and stuff. So it has to take less than a second to encode a second of video. Otherwise, it would get behind. The quality trade-off is pretty small. Like, for instance, we switched over to using the QuickSync system quite a while ago, and basically nobody noticed that I know of. Maybe you guys did notice, but I certainly didn't see anybody complaining about it. If you have a NVIDIA card, so if you've got a GeForce card, there's also a system on GeForce that does on GeForce cards that basically does the same thing, so that you can use that as your hardware encoder. The disadvantage of that is that it is on the graphics card. So if you are a single computer system, so if you're trying to stream from the same computer that you're playing your game on, you're going to have the performance of your game be impacted by that streaming. By that encoding on the card. I think there's people have said it's kind of a 20% hit or so. Depending on what kind of games you're playing and what kind of card you have, that might not be an issue for you, but keep that in mind. And it might be better than the load that I would put on your processor. So you have to kind of figure that out. But if you do have an Intel processor with built-in graphics capabilities, which is almost all of them, occasionally there's ones that don't, I highly suggest you use that instead of software encoding. In fact, doesn't actually take any resources away from the graphics card. That may be true. All the stuff I was reading was saying there was a performance hit from using it. The other things is the Intel. If you've got the option, like we've got both options. The general consensus I've seen is that the Intel QuickSync is better. Like you get better quality video at the same bit rate. So, yes, there's a couple of modifications that I need to make to this. For instance, that's in the wrong place and this is the wrong color. So I'll make those changes and re-upload this thing. I don't know if you can replace a picture in Imager, but anyway, I'll figure out something to do with that. So yeah. Any other questions? How much cooling does running both computers need? It's They're fine. I mean, you can probably hear the fans in here. I mean, they aren't the coolest. They aren't the quietest running computers. I think that's something that I would like to make better at some point. It's always a tricky one though. But I'd like to have quieter computers in here. And when the door is closed and the AC is off, especially if it's a fairly warm day, especially with the lights on and stuff, you can end up getting quite hot in here. How crazy is the electric bill? It's not that bad. It's sort of one thing nice about BC. Actually has really cheap electricity compared to most places. So, have you thought about water cooling? Yes, and then I don't know enough about it to make it. I don't think it's a big enough concern. Do you record streams locally? We for most streams, other than Checkpoint, we record locally in the sense that XSplit has an option that you can check that makes it save the same stream that it's sending out to Twitch. It also saves to the local hard drive, and then that gets sent over to the Axehand program that Ian runs in order to chop out all the commercials, and then we upload it to YouTube. But if you have headphones with microphones built in, do you still hook the microphones to the mixing board? It depends. Or if you've got the kind of headphones where they're like the microphone and the headphone are two separate jacks, then you can hook those two jacks however you want, right? You could hook the microphone one up to your mixing board and hook the headphone out to the output of your mixing board, or to a headphone splitter or something like that. Yeah, all the microphones that we use are XLR microphones, so it's a little bit different, but yes. Can y'all go over Axehand sometime? Yes, that will be something. I've actually thought about that. Maybe doing a dual LRRTech with myself and Ian, maybe even as part of Tinker Tailor or something, talking about the whole Axehand system. How much storage is on the streaming PC? We've got our main recording drive is a 3 terabyte drive, I believe. Yeah, it's a 3 terabyte drive that does fill up occasionally because, as you guys know, we've occasionally had problems with streams with filling up, and so we have to take everything off of it. But then, so those are the drives that are in the computer, and then we have I've got a 4 and a 5 terabyte sort of external drive that we use as like the backup. So there'll be like we've got like I think there's like a 5 terabyte drive that is 2015 loading ready run streams. Everything is on that one drive, which is kind of nice. Yeah, the today I'm just talking about all the sort of hardware, physical technology involved and stuff. The overlay stuff is sort of a whole other ball of wax, kettle of fish, whole other insert down home euphemism here, which I will probably talk about at some other point. But it is something that I have spent a lot of time messing with in various ways. We have various RAIDs. We have 2 different RAID systems for the backups of videos and stuff. Frankly, we consider the backups of the recordings of streams to be of, shall we say, lower priority archiving purposes. Not only do, for one thing, they're up on YouTube as, which in theory could be re-downloaded, although that's not an ideal circumstance. But it's also, if we lost a bunch of them, it's not the end of the world. Like, it's not. It is good, it's great content, but it's not stuff that we've spent a ton of time on, and it's you have to balance amount of time and amount of space. We probably have, we've got about a 15 terabyte RAID array that stores all our actual like content, all the raw footage for videos and all that kind of stuff. And so we would need basically that again to that would just be devoted to all our stream stuff, which it's not really worth it. Social Hearthstone, it is that same diagram is on the Loading Bay Run forums, and it's also on Twitter. Offsite backup is something that we have not found a good solution for yet. It is something that I am concerned about and something that I would like to do, but finding a good solution to back up the amount of data that we have in a sort of cost-effective and practical way has proved to be difficult. Consider getting a tape drive for backups? No, because I don't really know anything about tape drives. I appreciate the suggestions for backup stuff. It's you have a couple options. For instance, or a couple of issues. Something like Backblaze is super cool. But their standard thing doesn't work for network attached systems. AWS Glacier is very interesting, although actually getting your data out of AWS Glacier is very difficult, or not difficult, but it can be extremely expensive. So it's sort of weird in terms of as an archival tool, as like a backup tool. It's kind of odd in the sense that it's like, yeah, you can store it there, but if you ever want to actually get it, you'll pay through the nose. And yeah, all of these systems have the big issue where the sort of, I guess, initial backup or the ongoing thing of, sending, a terabyte or so worth of data a month can be tricky. So yeah. There's and there are solutions that are being worked on. The Backblaze B2, I think it's called, is something that I've experimented with. What do you call them? Sharded or not shard. But yeah, the new archival hard drives, like 8 terabyte archival hard drives, are kind of interesting. Tape drives, I don't know enough about tape drives to know how good they are and what we need. And obviously, it's backups are one of those things where, you can basically pay as much money as you want, right? You can pay, or as much money. There are solutions for any amount of money that you want to spend. And obviously they get better as the money goes up. You can pay obscene amounts for a backup system that is way overdoing it, or you can, not be backing up stuff at all. So we've been trying to kind of hit a medium of, not spending ridiculous amounts, but also being relatively secure. Yes, shingled. I was thinking sharded, but no, shingled drives. Those are quite interesting. I have for my own personal use, I have a backup system. I have a backup server in with a company in California. It's just like my web server, but I also use it for backup stuff. Because I do like web design and stuff, it's pretty small files. It's not like videos like we have here, so it works quite well to do it over the internet. But I always have the idea with there's like it's kind of like your password security. Like there's a certain level of password security that there's no point in going past, because past that level you're going to be dealing with situations where the amount of resources involved to do it mean that there's governments who have guns coming after you, and your password security is kind of maybe not your biggest concern. And the same thing being, it's like I've got this backup thing in California, but obviously there are situations, maybe you want to do it farther away, but it's like if there's a situation that occurs that destroys both Victoria and California, I feel like the backups of my web pages are going to be kind of low priority. So anyway, it sounds like the different questions have kind of slowed down now. So like I was saying, if you have any more questions or advice or issues or whatever, let me know, either through email or through you can do it on the forums or email me, obviously, on Twitter, hashtag. But there are other ways to contact me. And hopefully that was useful and informative. I see there are many viewers, more viewers than I would have suspected that would be into this. So, there you go. File system of the RAID backup. File system of the RAID backup. We've got one that's a Drobo, so Drobo has their own proprietary file system. The other one is a Synology box, which I believe runs ext4. The Synology one is the newer one. The Drobo is good, but it's super slow. So like I said, I'm hoping to do more LRRTech stuff in the future. Talking about other stuff. And feel free to email me or put in the forums or whatever if there is a particular subject that you would like to learn more about. As a preview of what might possibly come in an upcoming LRRTech, check this out.